live streaming to YouTube, so let me just make sure of that. And the second that I can confirm that we have good audio and everything like that going on, we will get into some live streaming. Now, I am going to have the chat on. I'm going to have a couple of things as well. Hold on just one moment. Let me make sure. Yep, that sounds good. Alright, so let me switch over now to the other screen. And we should be able to do, yep, fade out. Look at that. We'll get used to this one day or another. So I have always promised when I do replay reviews that I'm similarly harsh on myself, and, well, I want to put up or shut up. So let's take a look at a couple of these that I recently had with Quicksilver, who's playing under the name of Are You Desynced? And this first one is on Highway to Seoul, and I'm playing as the Scandinavia Mechanized that I often take in Ranked, and my opponent here, Quicksilver, well, I'll just call him Desynced. My opponent here, Desynced, is playing as China. Now, when I show you guys these 1v1 games, I usually do it from a neutral perspective, and that is with intention, because I tend to find it makes it a bit more entertaining, and, you know, that has some value to it, I think. I guess where I'm going with this is I want to say that is not what we are about to see. That's not really what I intend to be doing. I'm going to take a look and find, if I can, what I've done well, what I've done poorly, how I can go about making that better. And if there's a lot of things in replay reviews, I think that you skate a fine line between, you know, trying to go for something you could actually have fixed and trying to go for something that you had no way of knowing that you needed to have done earlier, like a buy 10 minutes ago. And those are the complicated ones, because they're the ones where you have to think, okay, well, is this something I should start doing? Or is this something that I had no way to predict? So we get on the road here, and this is, I think I was using the EOTS iHawk, which I despise this unit. I really do. I had it in the deck because I was playing a different version than I had intended to select. So that goes to show you right there sort of how, I wouldn't normally do that. And I take 2 because the accuracy on this thing is just horrendous. And my opponent's opening in... Now, this is China National, which isn't all that popular. I'd go so far as to say it isn't necessarily competitive in 1v1. Now, you have to understand what that means as well, which is a deck that you would feel fine taking on any of the relevant maps, really. Like, that's part of what a deck needs to do. There are decks that counter specific decks on specific maps and aren't what people would consider competitive in 1v1. So, ASF opener, I'm never sure how to feel about this. And actually we get a little bit doinked right there by the HQ61A, so this is going to be our first stop, pause, and think here. And I just wanted to say with it, like, I don't know how I feel about opening with an ASF, and to be clear, I didn't have this right when the game opened. I actually bought it, I floated about 90 points or so, and went in on it after that. And that does save you a little bit. You're not spending on the ASF before you get everything going. You'll often have 4 or 5 ticks of income before you can even buy the thing, usually. I just don't know. Like, it came in, there was nothing for it to counter. However, if there had been something, then I could have gotten value. So, I don't know. I'm not sure how to evaluate that one. We get the cap on Bravo. First 2 buys are immediately here, 3rd buy there. And let's take a look. So WZs, ZSD90s, mechanized push, really, with one of these heavier tanks back here. Now, my opponent knows I'm playing mechanized, and he's probably going to see if he can take advantage of that by just bullying me with larger tanks. So my Leopard 185 NO2s can't really do much for that. But so he knows what I have max, and I know what he has max, and I know that his maximum weight class for his tanks is far heavier than anything I can bring. Right, so let's take a look at this. 62G, 85.3. I can't really match that. I've moved my 185 NO2s over to the side here. And the question is really with, like, I don't know if that's something I should keep doing. it kind of feels like these Laros are thrown away down here, right? And sure, they're thrown away and my 1A5 and O2 survive, but what are these doing? So I almost feel like with this sort of mechanized opener, I want to do something else entirely. But then the question is, this is Highway to Seoul for a reason. The highway is important. So do I throw the Leopard 1A5 and O2s down here and try and do a more impactful push on the straightaway? Or do I keep doing this and accept the fact that I'm going to have 140 points that just aren't useful if my opponent brings anything sizable? So let's see as the match goes on. Maybe we'll make some decisions there. As for... okay. Yeah, I mean, the Laros... I'm not very good at getting value with them, so that's something that needs to be worked on. Because right now, I'm actually down about 50 points in trading, plus the 120 points that's locked up in an ASF, so Desynced here should have a lot more on the ground than I do. He's bought some base defense, I have bought not much base defense, really, and actually this is pretty cool. You don't usually see this sort of ring around the flank here with the PGZ-63s, but Desynced and I play quite often, and we both sneak quite a bit when playing each other. So it's a little bit of a metagame thing there. He's trying to prevent me from getting through, and is right to be that cautious. So, okay, I feel like I'm just waiting to respond. Let's actually take a look at my opponent's perspective, see what he sees. Because my goal is always to minimize my opponent's intel. I want him to not be able to see anything. Alright, so we see the M41s. I'm sure we've already seen the Leopard 1A5s, Laro, and a box. He shouldn't have seen anything over here yet. There's nothing over there to see. And because I'm not pushing here... yeah. Okay. Alright, let's flip back to neutral. Like, there's a lot of stuff, and he can't see it. I think that is a good thing. Let's come over here. This is why I do these early buys, by the way. I think that there's a lot of value from my side of the map to try and force red out of this area. And, you know, sometimes there's WZ551s and you lose a unit or two, and I really just think, if we look up here at this ridge, red can approach from this ramp, and from this ramp, and other than that, they have to come down here and sort of go through the bottom corner of the zone. So I like to sort of try to deny this ramp and this ramp by locking down this section of building early, and this has a cost, right? So right now we can look over on this side, and I haven't been able to deal with these tanks. The SD90 is a bit of a probe, but if he gets through here, he's going to try and cut me off in this triangle, and my buys over on the side have cost me the ability to reinforce in there. So that is sort of a criticism. I think I might have overspent, right? Because I have RBS, I have an STRF, that card is 55 points. And then we have Manpads, which came in a box. We have 2 double stacks of M41s. I spent about a minute's worth of income over here pretty early in the game, when neither one of us has really pushed. And I think, actually, you know what? No, I take that back. I don't mind doing this, but I think I can't afford to do both. So these are paratroopers coming over to Charlie, and I think I would have been safer if I had just gotten a couple of lines and made sure I had a couple of lines in here. I mean, there's nothing to stop these Legion 90 and Legion Dewey 90 if they go right down the pipe. So I think that's a big mistake on my part. And I need to change the buy order to reflect that. Like, there's no reason for me to be over here so far. And doing that when I don't really have a strong defense is a little risky. So the 1A5 and O2s are really most of my flexible defense here. That's not enough. M41A1s are good units. Always a fan of those. Okay. Let's see, and by the way, to the individual watching or anyone later on, let me know if the music is too loud, too quiet, or anything like that. I recently switched audio software, and so the balance might be a little bit different than what I'm used to, but I think it's okay. So I fiddled with that a little bit before doing this. And here comes the push, and I'm really curious what Desynced saw. So still nothing, really. Legion Dewey 90, I like this approach from him going into this section, where you can kind of try and cut over here as well. CCCs. Okay. Okay. That trade is good for me. I lose 10 points, I pick up 15, so net plus 5. And, okay, let's take a look. So this situation's developing. My 1A5 NO2s have been sitting here for about 6 minutes, not really doing much. iHawk's sitting here as well. I don't even see the infantry. That's a big problem. So I think if I was to do this again, I think I need... So these Fallskärmjägare are poorly positioned. Because they're not really far enough forward to spot much on that side. Like, I can see the 85-3, but if we take a look at neutral, I couldn't see that coming in, so I didn't even see this driving into the bush that's in right now. I should have been able to see that. I couldn't because I'm not far enough up here, but if we look at the angle of this approach, I haven't even seen the Legendary 90 coming because they walked right through this thick section of forest. There's no gap there for me to look at. So I think these Fallskärmjägare are actually a little bit of a waste. Now, you can use this hedge, but I didn't feel like I wanted to do that with the Leopard 1A5 NO2s fighting against an 85-3. So I think it might have been better if I'd gone for something like here. And I'm going to start trying to do this because what this does is from right here, you can actually look down this approach. Might not seem all that useful, but it'll at least spot any infantry that's coming forward, so that should give me a bit more of a leg to stand on next time. M48, okay. So we haven't really gotten into the meat of the game yet, either. This is mostly just getting picks while we can and being cagey. Let's go back. Yeah. And, you know, this won't be the most riveting of all the content I ever post, and if you guys hate it, then I won't really do a similar thing, but I don't know, I wanted to try it. I wanted to show you guys the things that I think about when I watch these, because I do watch most of my games after the fact, and this is a setup that I should have noticed. So if you look right now, the 1A5 NO2s are coming out. That's about the only thing I have here that's actually moving. So I have, finally, 6.5 minutes in, I have some infantry coming up. The rest of it spent in Charlie is not really that useful right now, including those 2 tanks here. And I don't really have anything for these guys to run into, so right now we're spotting them off of the medium optics from the RBS 56, and shooting them with units that I bought at the beginning of the game. Nothing really to prevent this. More aggressive opponents might have been able to take advantage of that, I think, in ways that I would not have liked. And that's not to say, by the way, that's not to say that my opponent's moves have all been perfect. So if we see this smoke right here, my 1A5 NO2s right now are not blocked by that smoke. They're actually blocked by the edge of the tree line right here, but just barely. And if I go a little farther out, this smoke has made it so that there's an incredibly narrow path that he can actually shoot through, and his 85-3 is too far on the other side of it. So if we look from the perspective of that 85-3, there is a lane. You can see the lane right here, but it's a very small lane, which isn't the worst thing if you can get one shot off. The thing is about the 85-3, that this thing is 7 RPM. It's going to take one shot. Decent accuracy, decent AP. My leopards aren't going to survive that on side armor, but one shot is all it's going to get, and this allows me to do something like this. So I'm reversing backward right now to try and make more distance, to try and get outside of the range of his tanks there, because I know that he can shoot through that gap, and we're out of range. So the 85-3 actually couldn't shoot anything at all. So, I mean, yeah, mostly negative criticism from my own perspective for now, but that one I did like. Never be afraid to maneuver your tanks. They have a reverse function for a reason. They have stabilizers for a reason. And actually, the 1A5 NO2's 50% isn't that great. It's not a perfect stabilizer, but it's about standard, I think, for that sort of tier of Blue 4 tank. So, pretty secure in Echo. I like this. Okay. What's going on here? This, okay, Takashasho. Huh. Coin flip hit. Landed twice. So that happens one time in 4. 3 times out of 4 my STRF escapes. That's not the worst bet to make, but this is not good. So that, I think, should have been on front armor, must have been. 3, I don't think I would have survived, even on 1 strength. No? No, okay. Yep, now we're turning the face, shooting the wrong target. And really the biggest mistake here, and let's find, yeah, my mortar's way too far up. So this is something that can happen in the opener when you don't micro units enough. This mortar was supposed to be back here, sort of in these hedges, but it got carried all the way forward because I didn't micro it well enough. And because of that, there's a minimum range on the smoke function on your mortars, and I'm too far up for it, so not quite able to do that. At least I think I can barely from here, but it's definitely awkward. And this thing has a noise value, so when it's smoking, it's firing that M29. And my worry was that if I smoke the tanks that I need to keep alive, I'd lose the thing that I could use to smoke. So I thought I was actually going to lose the mortar there. Maybe not, I guess, but... Okay, a little bit of a mech moment here, sacrificing the LHV. My opponent pulls back, being cautious. And this is actually a really nice pick. So these Illusion Dewey 90, there's not all that many of them per card. There's a fair number, but they're not innumerable, and they're not super cheap either. So that was actually a nice pick. I'm trying to finish that off here. Don't get it, retreat out, because we can still see the 85 2A. Okay. Block 15's back up. Volkskrieger here. It's going to be the Charlie cap. Not enough base defense. That's good. I really like this position for RBS. I didn't used to put them there, but I think the RBS there and something like I take my RBS in the STRF, so I put the IFV up here, and this thing hasn't shot yet, but it does actually have line of sight reasonably in front of this section of town, so you can use it to defend the RBS, even if that's not necessarily perfect. So, by the way, haven't forgotten about the Tankashasha. That's what these guys are here for, to deal with that and sweep forward, and Volkskrieger around the side. A little bit ungentlemanly, but you can kind of get a sense now of how I want to shape the front, and also what's preventing me from doing that. So how I want to shape the front is I want to sort of have a position that my opponent can't get into around here, right? So let's draw a midway line. So the midway line roughly between Echo, Delta, and Golf is going to be at about this height, shall we say. And I have a forward position in front of that, so I'm advanced here with very light stuff, but because of these cliffs, I can manage that. And I want to use that to basically prevent him from going wider on this side. And then we draw back a little bit, and then we curve in. So I'm making a U, effectively. It's very slight, but I'm making a little bit of a U. And the idea is that mech sometimes struggles against opponents in Delta because I don't have tanks that can match theirs. So what I want to do is I want to get incremental value on the flanks where I can, and then basically mass a huge mech push to go right through Delta. That's sort of the intention. And we'll see if we can get there. These Tankashasha, by the way, were really a problem. The fact that they landed those 2 shots on my IFE, and that prevented them from getting shot at themselves, is about to cost me, because these Ihawks... pardon me, hold on. Sorry about that. Yeah. They get a shot off right as they die, and it kills the Ihawk, and that's another thing. I think both of my backline assets were just too far forward, but the range on these guys is not amazing. It's 4200. There's a lot of systems that have a longer range, so yeah, I don't know. I'm not really sure. Can't cut out my sneezes, though. I usually can cut my sneezes out. I don't live stream all that much, and some of that's just for comfort, honestly, and some of it's because I don't like to live stream while I play a game, but looking at it afterward shouldn't be an issue as long as there's no construction, anything like that. The wife is, of course, asleep, so no problems there with noise, and so far the cat's being well behaved. Okay. So I've been thinking a lot about the Amos, and this game is actually something that made me take it out of the deck. So let's look at where they're firing. We have, I think, a couple of impacts there already, And let's watch these come in. I'm counter-battering the BM-24, so at least that's the intention. They have just finished stunning over here. And... okay, that's a stun. But the problem is, I'm reasonably certain that was just a shift cue, so they fired and then they were just told to move. So it's taken me effort to try and counterbat, and I've gotten a little bit of damage but no kill. So that's attempt number 1. We have... we'll keep track of the BM-24s and the Amos more. LHV, nothing behind it really. This is an easy problem to fix. This is a problem I have a lot when I play Mechanized. It's just, you can often forestall people at the cost of 40 points because they're just sitting there going, oh, my opponent's feeding these reservists, which is true. I am feeding reservists. But the idea is, while they're doing that, they're satisfied. And I can move something else into position. So we're getting the RBS forward. Should have brought the STRF forward. We see there with the Tankashasha killing that truck that's okay. That's double stack of Tankashasha. And here we get 2 Amoses firing in. That's the stun. I was really hoping to pick up a kill here, and I don't have line of sight. And this is actually because of a combination of 2 things. By the way, more BM-24 counterbat. So first, you'll notice this section right here, there's a surprisingly high amount of woods in front of it. So we have the woods that I'm in right here. There's a small lane that's not. So you see my cursor is standard colors, not blue. But then there's more woods right here. And this dense hedge farmland is going to cut down on the line of sight for anything behind it. So effectively, I'm adding some obstacles between me and my intended target. And then these WZs are actually decently far back. They're not attack moved all the way up to the front here. And this is something I should expect, because people often, they'll attack move down the length, right? So you have a unit that'll enter here, and it'll attack move this way. And that won't really change your left-right orientation that much, unless it's a sloppy attack order. So that's not a kill I should have expected to be able to get because of both of those things put together. One or the other, maybe, but not both. Luckily, I mean, we got him with the Amos, but even that, I struggle with it a little bit. I've spent 130 points on these Amos, and I just got 30 points back. So these guys need to kill another 100 points of stuff, and I've used half their ammunition. Right? Like, that's a big drain, and it's not necessarily going to be the most worthwhile. So, okay. Right. First off, Spags are way too good against infantry in the open, but, I mean, I guess having said that, it makes sense. It's a mounted gun emplacement. You should expect infantry in the open ground not to do well against it. The problem here was deciding to do this, I think. I was looking for the CV, the infantry. I didn't see it come in, right? So Falskmager on that side. And the hope was to use those guys to get eyes to then use the Fennec Toe 2. Because we can look right now from my perspective. I no longer see anything, and that's the problem. If these infantry were still alive here, I might be able to see something peeking out from these sides, and then the Fennec Toe 2 has a purpose. But he doesn't, and so he's low hovered because he was sitting here for too long, and now blocked by the trees. But that's not the end of the story. So in order to move, I have to pop up on top of the trees, and now there's a PGZ-88 that knows to look for me. So that's very much not a good thing. And, okay, yeah. This is probably the worst engagement I take during the duration of this game. So I've lost infantry. I bring out a Puff, I bring out a Block 15. PGZ-88's gun is on, has 7 front armor. So in order to one-shot 7 front armor, you need to overpen by 14 with heat. So that's going to be 21. And the AP heat on the Puff is 20. So in this particular matchup, one shot off the Puff is actually not enough to kill these 35-point AA Spags frontally. So I mean, from the side, yes. But here we get one shot, and I assume... oh, nope, that's a miss. Second shot, also a miss. Yeah, Puff's out of there, didn't do anything. Toe 2 coming around is going to be too slow. So that stun actually wasn't the reason it missed. The stun was a little bit after. I rolled a miss. And some of that is going to just be like bad luck, but when you think through that engagement, how it was taken, the fact that I moved my infantry out here first, and and my Totu wasn't in place, my seed wasn't in place. I mean, they were killed by a spag, and when that spag was back here shooting this direction, its front armor is also facing in this direction, which means that its side armor would have been presented to the puff. So the coordination there was off, and that cost me a lot of points. So it cost me 55 for the Totu, it cost me another, 25 for the light infantry. In the meantime, like, this is sort of being made up for if we look at my opponent's trading. These again are 25-point infantry. They're just taking tank shells. And something I actually heard recently from a very, very good player is those engagements are pretty much always mistakes. Whenever you get anything other than militia or lines shot at by a tank in the open, there's almost always a better option that you could have pursued. Now it's easy for me to say when I'm also getting Stormer, but this is one where I thought I smoked the gap. I didn't actually smoke the gap, and the Stormer get up. So this is one of those where, like, okay, from my perspective, that gap looks smoked. Right, so I'm sitting up here and I'm playing from about this height, maybe even about this height, and that looks covered, but it's not. So just be a little bit careful with your smoke on gaps like that. I thought I could get away with an infiltration. I couldn't. It cost me quite a lot, and I can't get those points back. So here, if we look at the overall board, relatively even on cap, both of us, I mean, neither one of us taking +1 at the moment, and my opponent's pushing all the way through Delta. Now, if he gets into this section and into the woods, it's pretty much over. So this was probably the most stressed I was during the course of this game. We had the bad engagement here, we have a lot of pressure coming in from Delta, and I kind of wonder why these tanks weren't seeing more use. But here, it's actually a little bit interesting. How does he engage? He's seen that there's an RBS here. He doesn't necessarily know that it's out of ammunition. And there are tank shells coming in from this side and from this side. So his only way to engage me here is to smoke this section off, which he's not doing. He smoked behind it. And then engage with one, then the other in sequence. Otherwise, when he comes forward, for all he knows, there's another 1A5 NO2 over there that's slinging those shells downfield, and he's going to advance up here, presenting front armor to the 1A5 NO2, and side to what's ever coming from that section. So as much pressure as is coming in here, this is not the worst defensive position. It's just that the second you lose this defensive position, then you have nothing left. Right? That's why it's better to defend farther up, to really contest this middle forest. It's not because you can't defend from here. It's because if you lose this, you retreat to here. You lose this, you lose the game. And insulating against those sorts of positional losses, it helps make sure that, like, bad rolls from RNG or one bad decision don't completely destroy the entire game. Now, we did just pick off a recon tank with RBS from here. That's pretty nice. They should be moving back now. Legion 90. Bit of an interesting thing. I've noticed a lot of shocks and other expensive infantry in front here, and I think that's actually a large portion of why we're doing as well as we are, is just the inability to deal with those tanks is made up for by moments like this. Right? Moments where the Amos just pounds right in, we get the kill with a Laro of all things, but if we hadn't, to be fair, the Amos would have gotten that with the last couple of shells that landed. So we could count that one toward paying off the Amos, which again, 130 points for that. If we're being generous, we include the Legion 90, we're up to about 65 points of return. It's not great. It's really, really just not great. So the question for me now is, how do I put pressure on this front? And the only answer I could come up with at the time is to go around. That's why you see buys over into Charlie. That's why you see the double 1A5 NO2. These guys, like, Scandi mech without 103Ds on the field is weird, but the reason for this is because, well, it's twofold really. It's because, one, I have stabilizers with these, so I can actually attack on the move. I can actually shoot while retreating. I tend to find it makes it a little bit better for flanking maneuvers than the 103D, where if you have to retreat out of a bad situation, you're not going to be putting any shells downfield. And then secondly, I've brought in some more expensive infantry, and the whole idea was to try and shoot this gap and get my Volkskrieger 90 into this section of woods. Because from here, if there's anything in here like the ZTQ 62G, I can hit it. right? That is actually within range of the Erics, I'm reasonably certain. So that was the thought process, and then we've been bought a little bit of space by the fact that I know that that trade went kind of okay in Delta. And that is sort of when you want to be getting yourself a little bit of initiative, is when you've been pushed and you deal with it well. It's really tempting to just rebuy everything that you had there, then sit and wait, and your opponent won't always give you that time. Speaking of, this was really interesting, and I wish I had done it better at the time. So when Mech sees cheap IFVs, it's usually not that scared, because these guys, I tend to have better veterancy and or better guns. I don't on the SGRF and in terms of veterancy, because it's, of course, in the infantry. Well, no, I should. Alright, that's the ATGM, I take it down vetted. So it's only vet 3. But this, right? So I've seen this by now. I know there's a ton of PGZs here, and look at the response. Not really much of one. Alright, so I have the Fennec 20 mils coming out. I don't have anything motorized. This is a current pressing problem, and about now is the moment where I realized I've really messed up on that. But the second you realize that, my mortars should be smoking, but my mortar's out, so I should be switching to this one, smoking this position and retreating, because the strip BB90 is 130 points. Do you know how many of these I'd have to kill? I have to get 13 kills on PGZ 63s to make up for that. And there's a lot of them, but I'm not even sure if there's that many. Plus, right at this moment, there's double ZTZ 85-2A, and actually, Desynced here is doing a bit better thought out a version of what I had intended over here. So over here I have the two 1A5N02s, I don't really have much chaff in front of them, and over here the PGZ 63s are going to be doing the dying, while the 85-2As are going to be doing the killing for my opponent. So this was actually a really well put together push. It could have benefited, of course, from recon, which isn't there. We just have the Lee Ren, and I think buying another unit of Lee Ren and pushing them up, because there's a lot of hedges. You can get Lee Ren right here, and you might not think this is a useful position, but it actually can spot pretty far in terms of counter spotting these hedges against vehicles at least, and anytime I move in here, so my command vehicle likely position is somewhere in this chunk, in that corner of the zone, you'll see it. You'll also be able to see when stuff in this building fires. You'll be able to see the infantry and shoot back in at it. So if you haven't tried putting recon in this section of hedge, I do recommend it. Okay. And then by now, not pulling out the strip EV90 on my part is just a mistake. It's just a fumble. Because I need a little bit more time, but I have Laros, I have another STRF moving around. These RBS should be on this side of the woods shooting in. They're in range now, but they're not because I forgot to move them. And this is a disaster. This is how you can lose games very often. You have the right tools, you make the wrong decisions, and that can escalate very quickly. So Laura's pulling back, RBS still not moving at all, no response here, and I just kind of throw the 1A5N02s forward. So very risky, very dangerous. We get the kill, but it would have been better not to take that damage. And then I don't even check, because my worry was if Desynced got through here and I couldn't make up for it in golf, then he just ticks +1, and if we stay at a stalemate for a while, I'm not sure how to make up for that, right? The usual way would be countercapping in Delta, but I've been basically completely pushed out of here by the presence of a tank that I can't really handle. So, at least not head-to-head. So let's go through this, and you'll notice there's about 6 minutes left in this game. I do want to go over at least one more after this, just because it's nice to see, like, what do I get out of watching this, right? So I'm watching this, I realize my biggest mistake here was not recognizing the threat on time and pulling back to deal with it. And if I had recognized the threat at the time, I could have gotten the strip PV90 out. When you think about the value on that, not having to rebuy 130 point CV would justify a Fennec ATGM helicopter. It would justify putting something else bigger on the field. I could have bought a tank and chaff in front of it with this. I could have bought a 103D, for heaven's sake. And the fact that I didn't, and I allow Red to get his 85-2As this close to a CV, that I had a mortar in the area to smoke off, is not good. Not good, to say the least. Also nice HQ61A. And then on this side, we run into a bit of trouble. So the 1A5 INO2s are definitely overextended. This is the moment where I actually thought to myself, well, shoot, I'm just going to collapse here, right? So do I? And if I do, why? And if I don't, why, right? If I do, I think we've gone over the why. We've kind of belabored that a little bit. But it doesn't answer the if I don't. So we pick up a J7C here, which is nice. Relatively cheap bomber. You'll see a lot of those spammed out by Red Dragon's Coalition. That's dead now. Really expensive. In order to make up for that, I mean, that cancels out everything that I killed from that push, and then some, and that's not even counting the unit losses I took on the right here. This overextend cost me both tanks, because WZs are very good. Yeah, I mean, this thing, ZPT-90, don't underestimate it. And I think he even picks up some damage, yeah, some damage there on the Scout Defender. And these guys are in the open. This represents, if we go back in time, if you were here earlier in this video, or if you scroll back to it, remember when I mentioned I was trying to make a U, right? So I was trying to have a forward position here, defend in Delta, and then have a forward position in Golf. That U is pretty much gone. I have an overextended couple bits of infantry on this side, and I've been pushed out of Echo. So now we go back to that center line here, the one that we drew right down the middle of Golf Delta Echo, and I'm well behind it. So my opponent's actually pressing pretty much on 2 out of 3 fronts, and on the third, there's not much threat here, really. Might sound funny to say, but the Eryx isn't very good in woods. It's not really the sort of thing that you're looking for there, so not the strongest position for them to be in, and just that and Ildstata Gruppe very easily contested. So, let's see, RBS moved up, Storm Engineer 90. Might look like a weird position here, but I find these guys actually deal decently well with infantry between hedges. Now, in the same hedge, yeah, we just got pancaked, but the idea here was to go up and shoot at something over in this hedge with the 85-3. I was trying to get a pick on that. Shouldn't have, but that's what the attempt was. MLU comes in, we get a tank, and that at least gives me a bit more breathing room as the Volkskrieger are looking to make contact. So, double WZ 551. Yeah. And you see, like, this did peter out eventually, right? So we kill one of the 85-2As with a plane. Not ideal, but we did it. And my chaff will eventually outtrade his by virtue of being mech versus on spec. So it's not really anything other than the 85-2A that's really the cause of worry here. Volkskrieger get in a little bit over their heads. Yeah, man. I expected better out of these guys, but honestly, the Tenkashashao do pretty well, and then just constant pressure from the infantry, and here it is. Red Dragon's Coalition Special coming right up, 1,000-kilogram bomb, and I'm too stunned. Like, mortar support, the fire coming in from Zanshi and Tenkashashao, even if that hurt desynced a little bit, it's definitely worth it. It clears his backfield completely. So he's actually taking +2. There's a ZZZ 59-1, and the thing I want to point out is I can't see it now, but I did see it drive in. So these Volkskrieger here were able to spot that driving in, and just being able to see where your opponent puts his CV is such an invaluable thing. It really is. This was not well thought out. Like, let's count this, and then I'll tell you why doing this was something I did wrong. 15, 30, 45 from the one that just died, 60, and another 60, 120 points here. How much more would I have been able to get done with a 103D, 4 units of militia, and that's 130 points right there. So the 103D can actually fend off the 85-2A. Has the gun to do it, has the front armor to do it, has the RPM to do it. Doesn't necessarily need the stabilizer here, because most people, when they are pushing forward, they'll attack move anyway, so my 103D does have time to line up there, and it wouldn't just die one after another to that 85-2A. Plus the militia in front will give me more cost-effective things to take hits instead of just the crowd of 15-point tanks. And block 5. This is why you should... So, okay, here's actually a question. If you're red right now, and you're trying to drive your command vehicle up and get something into Echo, how do you do this without getting spotted? Because you can either go through the ramps I showed earlier, like you can come down here, 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 or here. Here you don't want to do it because I have control still on this side. There could be an ATGM back on that way. You don't want to do it. Besides, it's not really close to the zone. No reason to favor the left side ramp over this ramp. If you drive in this ramp, you have the same problem. There could be, you know, if this still had any ammunition left, that would be an issue. If there was an ATGM here, that would be an issue. So you're really left with this ramp and this ramp, and most people will use the center one that my opponent did because, well, it's not too far over. You don't have to drive as far. You just put the order to have it come out right here, and it'll go along this section of road, it'll cut over, it'll drive right up. So how do you avoid getting that spotted by Falskgrimjägeri? And the answer is smoke, but the answer isn't smoke right here. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people drive their command vehicle into one certain spot and then take a mortar and put smoke right there. I wonder where the command vehicle is. Right, so what I do when I'm trying to hide this is also really important on Mudfight. When you're doing a counter cap on the main zone, you smoke a line, basically. You smoke a couple times here, you go right across, and then instead of putting it right in the middle, you put it like somewhere just a little bit off to the side, right? And then, well, okay, I know there's a command vehicle that went down there. It might be infantry, it might not be infantry, it might be a vehicle, I didn't see it. Do I know to use a cluster bomber or HE? Well, no, because I didn't see a tank drive in. And do I know exactly where to bomb? No, because the smoke isn't just on one spot. So right there we pick up the CV, we pick up some anti-air, and this 85-2A is getting a little bit tired of being here, even with all the nice kills that it has racked up. And what's actually really interesting about this, like, this one surprised me. It's one of the reasons I wanted to look at this particular match. Desynced and I were in voice chat together, we're just sort of hanging out, and right as this engagement started, he basically said that he felt like he was moto collapsing as China unspec and didn't quite understand it. And we've seen how Echo, you know, flipped entirely his direction, flipped entirely back. Why am I attacking here and why does it work is the biggest question that I need to answer if I want to do this ever again successfully. If I want to, you know, be able to use these tools well later on, I have to understand why it worked this time, because that 85-3 outclasses my 1A5 NO2 that I'm pushing with. M41A1's not the most powerful. Storm Engineer 90, not going to trade well head-to-head against Lujan Dewey 90. So what happens? And if we watch, we'll see a couple of things. First off, these guys are too far forward. Just like earlier on in the game, my opponent's trading away shocks for no gain. So we get vision on those die. We get vision here, these die. 50 points down, and the infantry in front of that 85-3 are now gone. Well, half gone. They'll be entirely gone here pretty soon. This is a risk, admittedly. But then the M41s here also aren't being fired at by ATGM, so this is another sort of signs why I pushed those forward before I did anything else. And we lose that, yeah. But we're going to get picks in the ZST-90s here from RBS. We still have one IFE to stun these Lujan Dewey 90 here. And with that stun, my Storm Engineer can actually finish the job. If they even had to, but they don't because the 1A5 NO2 beats them to the punch. So now we have a tank that's isolated in front of everything around it. And that all happened in about, what, 20 seconds? So we had 2 infantry squads die, 3 vehicles die, including 1 15-point IFE, which is actually not bad for 15 points. Like 4 armor, decent autocannon. It's, I think it's better than the veritable TH495 everyone talks about in Commonwealth. It's the only 3 front. Granted 3 side, but, you know, trade-offs. If all the vehicles were the same, there wouldn't be much to talk about here either. And what's this guy supposed to do? Right, like, he can advance forward. If he does, the Storm Engineer 90 are probably going to get the pick, even though it definitely would kill the tank. And this is actually something too. So I like the positioning on that far side of the woods. It prevents exactly what I just said might happen from happening. But here we get an opportunity. Miss. Dead. But Scandi is nothing if not capable of you know, answering some of those things with assets surprisingly far back behind the lines. And of course, with that, I do mean planes. So I have an MLU, I have a Puff coming out. I believe I had, yep, helicopters going forward just to make sure I keep eyes. And here we get kill on the plane. A little bit of a dangerous circle here, get a little bit lucky. My timing on planes really does need a little bit of work. Yeah, because that's... yeah, I mean, it's non-radar. No way to really make sure I can see it. 1, 2. Down we go. And yeah, like I lost the MLU there to a Kurtal, which always hurts. HQ7 is just Kurtal stat copy, as we all know by now. But picking up the recon tank and then picking up the CV, 100% worth it. That's why I take that thing up vet. I highly recommend you guys do that as well. It's just that good. And we didn't even really need to kill this tank here, right? Like, we do, I think, but yeah, like compare this board state with a couple of minutes ago, and then you sort of get a sense of what my opponent was saying. It's just like, wait, what the heck happened? This was a strong position, and now it's done. So I think the biggest takeaways for me were that if my opponent hadn't been careless with his shock infantry, I'm pretty sure I would have lost the game, because my field position was bad very often, and my units weren't in the right place very often, and even when they nominally were, the coordination wasn't quite there, like we saw over on the left flank in like the middle of that game. But we were able to capitalize on my opponent's mistakes. We were able to get those kills on shock infantry, and that led to a very narrow victory, right? Like, my opponent surrendered up 107 points to 15 in terms of conquest points, and barely behind on trading. This is like 145 points difference on trading. But it all happened so suddenly that it felt like it was just fighting a tide, and encouraging that feeling like it's a very psychological game at times. So you don't want to play on tilt, you don't want to do all these things, and that many losses that quickly were just a little bit too much too fast. So let's exit out here, and I'll find the other one that I'd want to go through, because my opponent there, Desynced, also known as Quicksilver, has been asking me to do these for a little while now, so and they were good games, for sure. So this one, just to show you guys the name of it, Scandimech versus Entente Mech. I'm playing Scandimech again. My opponent is switching now from China to Entente Mech, which, whenever you see that, it's like, yeah, it's a friendly game, but he definitely did want to win. And I'm actually going to mix this one up a little bit, because the last one we did, I watched before I did that sort of step-by-step. This one I haven't watched it since we played it, and I'd like to do that now, but I'd like to do that from his perspective. I want to sort of feel what it would be like to have fought against what I put out. And oftentimes, like, this is a nice thing to do, because, you know, I'm sure when you guys are playing the game as well, you'll notice certain people it feels like fighting a tide, certain people it feels like you're just trying to avoid getting plane spam, certain people it feels like you're being pressured everywhere at once, or there's a spear point in one section but everywhere else feels kind of weak and a little bit sluggish to respond. And so watching from your opponent's perspective with a critical eye can sort of tell you how your own playstyle feels to play against, and that can highlight some things that could be worked on. So let's take a look here at this game. Entente Mech, very powerful. I'd argue Scandimech is actually a decent counter to it. Because, and we don't see a lot of them right now. I'm actually kind of surprised. There's not a lot of BVPs here, if any. I don't think there's any BVPs. Wow. But the BVP is what Entente Mech is known for, and I think they kind of get bodied by STRFs and CV9030Ns, so... Okay. That's fine. This is actually a little bit goofy. Hera 2 versus 4 boxes. And we get the kill. Oh, hey Dalton, how you doing? So, let's see. There's my opener. I don't like how early he can see it. But I'm not sure if I should have been smoking here, because, yeah, that's the thing. Like, he sees it, but he only... Oh. Yeah. Right, I always forget. People have so many aliases. Quicksilver is in the comments, so if you're watching this later and you can't see the live chat, that's who I'm probably going to be talking to at least a little bit. I think you have channel permissions, by the way. I'm on Discord, and... Right, I'm not streaming. Yeah, there we go. Here you are. Now I'm streaming on Discord as well. Link for that, by the way, is on the channel main page in case you do want to join in. Although it's a private stream at the moment, but sometimes I do public ones. Yeah, okay, so no BVPs. You see my mechanized opening, but not the motorized one. And does that matter? Kind of? The 0810Ds did a lot better work than I thought they would. Supposed to heat gun, what, 12-2. Not bad. And yeah, so you see me retreat. Yeah, I guess so 10 RPM is pretty nice for 10 points. Right, so this was a fire position. I couldn't see your Droog team. Too shallow. Too shallow by far. Should have been smoking. Big mistake for me that I wasn't. And this, so that's interesting. So you defend, so my opponent, jeez. Quicksilver, I know you're in the chat, but I have to refer to you as my opponent because, you know, there's 4 people watching right now, and everybody else who sees it afterward, they're not gonna be able to see your live chat or anything like that. So I'm gonna have to go third person on you. I'm sorry. This was interesting though because the top of the plateau is defended, so I figured let's just dive over here and see if I can clear out these woods. I know there's a Droog team here. I figured there's probably some recon infantry, which with Entente usually does mean Pruskomnichi. And then I figured if I could get, yeah, I mean that's nice picks. The Shiloh, the Droog team, the Stormer going through here should do really well. And then I was hoping to get in here, and I think the L15M saved the situation. So let's take a look. No. What the heck was that HE bomb? It's like... Okay. My Stormer was split up a little bit. Alright. So I think a lot of people contend that my opponent's side of the map here is the weak side, so my side is the strong side. But mostly because of how the opener goes. So like blue side here can open all the way around and can cut off Boris, and it's surprisingly oppressive. Blue can go right up onto the plateau, and it's surprisingly oppressive. And blue can go all the way through Gregory and get here, and it's surprisingly oppressive. And like that's a lot of bad options for red to have to deal with. So I like what my opponent's done here for defense because, well, I didn't achieve any of those things, right? So if you look just for a second at neutral, I didn't do a full sneak around this side, so I'm not going to cut Boris, and basically by defending up on the plateau well here, we're now fighting over the middle of the map, but with an advantage to red. And what I mean by that is we're not playing destruction, we're playing conquest, and control of the zones, so goes the game, right? So if red has pretty much uncontested Boris, Gregory is contested, Fedor is contested, I lose. Not immediately, but eventually, and eventually is good enough. So, let's take a look here. A little bit of Oat-10D feeding, but, I mean, picked up a kill anyway. I'm gonna have to try these guys out the next time I play Entente Mac. Like, I can certainly see the appeal, and I think you were probably just trying to counter my recoilless rifle cheaps. Which makes sense, certainly. Just in the nick of time on those proletary. Ah, that's upsetting. So, yeah. This is a nice response. And right now, I guess, my main criticism of my own opener here is it feels like maybe 20% of my opponent's opener countered mine, and then I just didn't do anything with it after that. And to the comment there, yeah, no, I don't think the Oat-10D is a side grade of the M41A1 and doesn't have recon. Yeah. The recon's the most brutal part of it. Okay. And yeah, so NM145 is going to struggle, but these BVPs are really going to struggle when they run into CV9030Ns. And that's definitely something, that's a trade I wanted to force. Definitely wanted to force that. If you have if there are other attendees out here, I could take a look again. But I don't know. I don't know how I like that. There's a priest. Okay, let's go a little bit quicker here because this is a longer game and it's relatively early in the morning for me. I just wanted to I wanted to look at these. Mecca Savannah. Yeah, this was really hard for me to deal with, and let's take a look at why. So there's double M84AN back here, and there's infantry moving forward. And so I can't really zone things out, because if I have an ATGM here, well, 1, this is getting shelled, 2, sections of it are on fire, 3, there's going to be infantry moving forward, and 4, direct fire from the M84A and recon tank all the way through the back. So I kind of feel like the initial pivot over into the woods was good, but I didn't do enough with it quickly enough. And so a way around that might have been if I had smoked back here and just immediately dove for these towns, right? Because if Stormer can get in here and, well, okay, Proletarian 90 and BVPs die because the Stormer weren't expected, then I have a nice solid foothold. But without that, I've always found it really hard to hold on to these woods. And that certainly proved true here because, yeah, I just get leveraged right out. Yeah. And Mechas of Ana aren't even all that great. But, I mean, they're good enough sometimes, especially with fire support behind them. BVPs are brutal for a reason. Fun side note. Moving that was actually a mistake. There's a sight line right through here. And I could have probably picked up one or both of the BVPs if I had done that maneuver well. But I didn't. Stormer take a beating, and there we go. Okay. So, you see 4 boxes like this. That, to me, merits an immediate response, because I don't know if it's just those 4 boxes, I don't know if there's infantry in there, I would assume there's infantry in there. Because the assumption, from Red's perspective, after that first recon helo died, should have been, okay, well these guys went all the way around, because what sort of person just sends the boxes all the way around? But if we look, my Eldstota Gruppe, actually the wrong ones, 85, I didn't mean to buy those, are still on that side. So that I was hoping would cause an overinvestment, and let's see if it does. So if I could pull those resources off, it would at least buy me some more time here on the front. Yeah, bad trade. I feel like that was kind of a wash, actually. Because earlier on we had some good trading, now we had some bad trading, Red's in this position, but we're going to shell it. Oh, you saw me unload. I didn't realize you saw me unload there. Man, I'm bad at maintaining third person for this. T72 M1K. Yeah, this was actually... So that's a dead AN. Or no, that's the OATs. Where's the other dead AN? There's a second one. I think we just missed it. Oh, they're just side by side. There we go, look at that. Dead AN. Other AN is shooting here and gets the automatic. Honestly, I'll take that trade. I think ANs might even be more valuable in a mech versus mech competition here. Okay. Drive right past it. Zalesnici. So, Red could see that there was no kill there. Tanks panic, it's not going to matter. Boom. There. Okay, not bad. Yeah. Other AN still here. So, thinking about this right now, and maybe this will change, the perception I'm getting just looking at my opponent's perspective here is that there was sort of non-committal pressure in the middle of Feder and basically nowhere else. Boris doesn't really feel pressured. Gregory doesn't really feel pressured. This move was heavily, I guess, what's it called? Not foreshadowed. Telegraphed, that's the gamer version of it. Anyway. And this is kind of scary. Right, so lots of tanks. Everything here is dead. They should be. but it's not going anywhere. So, yeah, capping Gregory. +1, 79 to 62. I guess I'm happy with this. At least for right now, but that's only true because this worked. So if we wind back the clock a little bit and we say that the L15M that came here was a right click instead of just a fire pause, but I mean, right click with 2 bombs isn't going to be the highest guarantee of success anyway. But if that had killed the Leopard 185 and 02, then there'd still be a recon tank up here. There'd still be a T-72 and 1K capping this zone. Instead of +1, I'd be at 0, and I just ran out of music, so let me go ahead and restart that real quick. There we go. Just covers up the background noise and the AC and things like that a little better, cars and all and whatnot. So this looks acceptable to me right now, but I think it was more accurately described as a bit of a failure in Fetter, followed by a little bit of luck around the side of Fetter, and that's what's keeping me in the game right now. So next time I think I'd probably have taken that mechanized opener and just shoved up here anyway, and maybe even not taken the motorized components, because it looks like it doesn't take all that much to stop them, and so if I'm going to go up in Fetter, I may as well do it all at once in Force. I also like the pivot over here, and yeah, I guess here's another opportunity. So what did I have there? Volscom Jageri, STRF, LHV, lots of LHV. I probably could have loaded a couple of these back into the transports and just shoved them up to that town and just tried for it, and I think they would have gotten to about here and gotten shot. But it could be worth a try. By the way, box. Okay, so on this side, there's defense against the flanking, bringing up a CV. I think not the worst time for a CV. In all honesty, you want to double down on the tick advantage when you can get it. And, okay, so there's a comment from the guy who was my opponent. Honestly, you killing my fire support and constant spam of LHV was my bane. Okay, so my opponent here, Desynced, is telling me right now that a lot of the pressure that he felt came from just the sheer amount of LHV. So I'm going to keep special attention to that as we go forward. I've gotten a lot of people asking me why I still feel the need to take them in mech, because you get upvet, especially in Scandi mech, you get Dragoner, and the LHV seem kind of redundant. There's like 50% increase, you get a really good MG, you get all the reasons that Scandi unspec doesn't take reservists apply, but I like them. I like them in Scandi mech quite a lot. So okay, so you saw the Volscom Jageri switch in here, so red knows that there's, yep, right there, sloppy building swap. I really wanted to pick on the M84AN, by the way, I just didn't have the points for a plane. That would have been a nice pickup. Spotted. Okay, that's when these guys get thrown out there. And this still doesn't, in my opinion, solve the long-term problem. Like, the only reason I'm ticking +1 right now is not because I've solved the issue of how I win at 40. It's because I've been able to forestall losing at 15. And that's a bit of an issue, especially with this guy coming in. Although I should note, because I had the recon infantry on the side there, I could see this. So I was watching this box with the infantry just go right down the highway and check the veterancy, saw it was 2, really wanted to throw a plane at it, didn't. And I think that's another thing. If we look at my units, I have the Amos here again. Yeah, so we can see that coming in. And I have the Amos mostly out of ammunition, didn't really pay for itself. I think I'm going to be just taking the Beacon again, because you watch this drive up, right? And you can realize that with just the Amos, infantry in a building are going to be pretty resilient to incoming fire. Oh, man. Oh, I didn't realize that. That was so close in timing. If that MLU had hit right before you unloaded, dead command infantry right there. And what plane is that? Is that mine? Probably. What is that? Oh, come on. Yeah, it looks like a puff. Oh well. That was a near escape. Good micro, yes. Good micro indeed. But, like, I knew it was there, and other than sending something like a Fighting Falcon, I had no way of actually punishing that, even though, like, I could just know it was there the whole game, and oh man, like I had the Gruppe back here, but they're not the right infantry for getting into the town well, and I had no effective long-range HE. Ooh. Oh no, dispersion. That was so close. That was so close. Oh my god. Yeah, man. I don't think I can really recommend the Amos. It's nice, but it's not nice enough, I think. And maybe here's what I'd say. The best use I've gotten out of the Amos has been when I've used it against Moto players. Because if the Moto player is at all sloppy with their high-value elites, it can pound them into the dust in a single volley. 100%. But, yeah, I don't know. There's another comment. I wish you knew it was there, so I simply had to take what I... Yeah. It's quite a conundrum. This Fennec, by the way, was just looking for a command vehicle. I wanted to see if the tank was back over there, so not seeing it over here, knowing that it was a tank, told me there was a command tank in that corner. And here we see a little bit of the struggle that I was talking about. Like, once this cap is in place, I'm kinda... well, up a creek without a paddle, as they say. This is an overinvest because I had nothing really in there. Well, actually, did I still have... no. All the old Delta Gruppe were dead. I can't say that's an overinvest. It's probably fine. I didn't realize how light this was held. Like 2 BVPs, Mecha Zavana. I could have taken the 103Ds and some lighter stuff and just gone right up top. And I think, yeah, I think Red hasn't been trading amazingly so far, which, given that I know how this one ends, does raise some questions. Oh, Block 5 didn't drop. That was fire paused right here. I don't know why it didn't drop. That was not a right click. I had no line of sight on anything. And I think I lose it. Yep. Man, that's a big swing. Oh, that's a big swing. And, okay, Parabranci 90. Did they get the kill there? Nope. Oh, right. This moment. Hey, by the background, I'm guessing that's Boominator who just joined. Yeah, let's watch this. This was really fun for me to do at the time. I really enjoyed this. So, Parabranci 90 come out. I didn't really have anything guarding them. I just had a single tripwire, bring these guys back, and into the woods. And Red can't see them, so they're flashing. Assumed I went farther back than I did, so the Prist is just missing. And here we go, now I have reinforcements. Problem solved. At least for right now. This was... oh yeah, okay. So, I tend to find that some of the trick for mech for me is doing just 2 or 3 things at once. And it works out so well. So, you know, while we're having this waffling about the Parabranci 90 and Desynced is, you know, moving this stuff to the side, and the M84 is engaging here and kills an automatic there, well, okay, I have another. And they don't call it an anti-everything unit for nothing. Oh my god. There we go. Beautiful. Spacious skies, amber waves of grain. The whole thing. Yeah, so that's taken care of. That's going to put stress on people. While that was happening, the Volkskrieger 90 were moving up. Now, I got pounded by HT40s, which is kind of embarrassing, but I like that. In general, I like that. I think it would have been much better. So I had assumed that any sneak through here would have come through this side. And because I still have my tripwire, I didn't think there was any sneak. And what actually happened is they were unloaded here before I moved this stuff up. They came back through this section of woods and all the way around. So when I make this little cordon, they're already back behind it. And that's something I hadn't ever had done to me before, and it's something I'll think about now, because you know the stereotypical sneak on this map is someone goes right around this little gap. And yeah, okay, not strictly speaking necessary, I guess. So, yeah, live and learn. And here's that problem, red sticking +1. And the only thing I can think of, the only thing I thought of during the game too, was just to clear the top of the plateau. That's so predictable. I almost wonder if it would have been better. Yeah, these guys are spotted now. I almost wonder if it would have been better for me to have massed a push and gone here, right? Because if we look here, there's Conqueror's M's, there's 2 Peloponnesi 90, but they're far enough over, and I have fire support here, however little. If I could have gotten into these buildings, and then you try and cut over on this side and you pressure into the +2, I think that would have been a better way to resolve this, and I think I'm going to try that the next time that I end up sort of stuck in this middling position here. Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Okay. This is good. LRKT doing their job. Oh, man. Ouch. Still, I don't hate that I tried to do that. I think the issue was, if we look right here, my only recon's these Fallskärmjägare, and the reason I don't think I saw those is because their approach is behind the buildings until right here, so there's not a big window, and like, technically spotted is not the same thing as I saw it happen. Oh, rough. Knock. Yes, I have checked out Broken Arrow. I loaded it up. I immediately had a glitch that prevented me from making a deck, and I figured that was a sign to go play ranked instead. So instead I made it to Brig Gen on my third account, because I'm too scared to try for Major General, but I got to Brig Gen 3 times over, so now I have to. So I'll be hopefully getting some ranked games on the way toward Major General here pretty soon. I like this. Yeah, from red, I like that a lot. So the idea was this strike failed, you leave one, you get the other up and around and through, and you try and make the most of it. And here, a little bit unlucky on the timing. LVKV's pretty brutal. Yeah. And again, this was the right call here. So, I don't know, this is where I feel like I began kind of feeding points up onto the high end of the plateau. And by the way, this was crap. I'm sorry. Oh my goodness. So yeah, that jump right there, the name, it was centered right here, and then it jumps over here. When I'm firing in and I see that name centered back here and I see a stun, I think that both units of infantry are back there and stunned, and they weren't. And so the one that got through gets the kill. I lose 130 points. Yeah. And the antidote to this is simple, right? Like, mechanized decks, I don't think should ever really be losing this section, because you just keep getting something in the way, and this happened because I didn't have something in the way. If I had something in the way, I could have responded, could have prevented those infantry from getting over there. So, Nox says, I guess that was not a bug. There was a thing you had. No, yeah, no. I chose both specs. I got into the deck builder, and then when I was comparing units, I pinned a unit for comparison and played around with the armament. And then when I unpinned the unit, the wrong unit card unpinned. So there's the one on the right, and then there's the one on the left. And when you unpin, you're supposed to sort of just only have the one on the right, because the one on the right unpins and the one on the left shifts over, right? But when I unpinned, the one on the right, that was the pinned unit, disappeared, and the one on the left, which is the unpinned, that's supposed to then move into that right side slot, didn't move. So because of that, it was covering up my options to actually click on units. Yeah, so I know you're supposed to select both specifications. I read that when it said I needed to select both specifications. It was a honest to goodness bug. Yeah. So even with that, we're actually not in the worst position here near the town. That's a fortress. I guess. You know, here's something actually. I think what we're about to watch is me just deciding, okay, well, let's go up here. That didn't work, let's go up here. That didn't work, let's go up here again. And I'm not sure it would have been as easy to resist if I had just gone both directions at once, but still, like, I don't know. Feeding stuff to a Conquerors is sloppy. Single, like, there's so little that held this town for so long. So, you know what, maybe, here's what I'll do. I think I might ask for some practice games on Hell soon on my Discord and just try and get into this side of it and practice pushing this in the mid-game, because I think that could lead to a very dominant position, and I just didn't do it. Also, this is just... just not smart. There's no reason to push 5 strength infantry up here without anything in front of them. So... yeah. Yep, definitely. And the coordination's off. So, like, the same thing that we watched happen in the last game when I said the coordination was really, really off on my left flank when I was trying to have that infantry, the helicopter, and the planes sort of all working together. The coordination's off here too. Here's my lines. There's my NM-135s. Here's 2 tanks. Why the heck did I feel the need to push 4 fragile infantry with long-range good AT up right before this? Alright, like quad M41A1 as well. This was just... I don't know, it was not sufficiently patient, and whenever you do something that's not sufficiently patient here, I think you have to ask yourself, what was it that made you feel like you needed that right now? And here, I think it's a misread, it's a misunderstanding of what's going on. Like, 155 points to 150, yeah, Desync is gonna pass me on conquest points in not very much time at all, but only by a +1, and there's 15 minutes left in the game. This is really only an issue if I can't address it in the next 5 or 6 minutes, which is a fair amount of time in terms of Wargame. Like, that will go by very quickly during these matches, and so I think waiting 45 seconds to do it properly the first time around would have saved me a lot of grief. Or even then, if I had taken this and said, okay, well, maybe I can't get up there, but then maybe I might be able to clear this section of woods and attack into the town, that could have been something as well. And instead, yet again, piecemeal. 4 M41A1s, no smoke, nothing on the approach, nothing to keep them safe, and they all die. And that's just... this is what people criticize about mech. It's the, well, there was no reason to lose that unit, you were just trying to do something and you got mech brained, right? Like, zero reason to do it, and you did it anyway. This was actually a really nice pick. Yeah. I wish I could say that that was intention or skill on my part, but both of those M84As that just died here got a little bit trolled by line of sight. So if you look at my tanks, I have 1 and 2 right here, and because of the little bit of a funnel that tanks have to go through to get through here, because they can't go farther over to the right, this is impassable to wheels, I think, like to anything other than infantry. They got funneled through one in front of the other, and so both my tanks shot at the same one and got the kill. Ordinarily 2v2, they're gonna split their shots, and so with the M84As alive a little bit longer, they can return fire and use the fact that they are just better stat tanks than mine to their advantage. So MLU, I was coming in because I thought I wouldn't get the picks in the M84As, lose the MLU. Man, brutal stuff. And, okay, I think this is me actually pushing these sections of town just a little. So I have the Stormers, United 30Ns. Would have been nice if I kept my smaller fire support tanks alive. Yeah, definitely fed a lot of points here. And more to the point, I think I was using the cheap units at the wrong time and losing them for nothing. And now, if I could have had militia that was still alive, like, my opponent is in the live chat right now and said that the LHV were definitely something that felt like they were putting up a lot of the pressure. From what we've seen, I think that was only really true earlier on, because a lot of this is coming from shocks, it's coming from M48A1s, it's coming from stuff like that, and not a lot of Like, all of my meat shields died to give the impression of a push, instead of actually being used for a push. Yeah, well. Alright, let's keep going, and I do want to go back to just Red's perspective here, just for a little bit. Yeah, like, this is way more threatening. So, Gregory's completely gone. It cost me way less losses to do that than I've thrown at the top of the plateau, and... Okay, so that was seen. So now there's a couple of tricky questions for where to go next, and I think both these... Oh, were those loaded? Did I really? Yep. Never do this. Please, please, please never do this. If somebody sent in this replay to me and I saw them do this, I'd be sitting there going, yeah, well, that's dumb, don't do this. This was, I mean, so many points, right? It's so many points, and completely wasted. Completely wasted. Goodness gracious, that hurt to watch. But, I mean, that's why you should watch, right? Like, if I win this game, I'm going to think to myself, oh, man, I made just enough right decisions. And the answer right there is no, I made a horrible, horrible decision, and a horrible, horrible, not even trade, just losing things for no reason. And if I had unloaded those, if I'd unloaded those back here, walked them up, and had them to be able to put pressure on plateau while this was going on, that's a lot better. That's a lot better. So winning the game doesn't mean that you played perfectly. It means you played slightly less bad than your opponent sometimes. And oh man, that was just one of those moments where it was, I felt the need to give about a minute's worth of my own reinforcements directly to my opponent for whatever. Something came over me. Don't know what it was. Prist there. This is another argument for the bad beacon. At least then I could counter battery with something. Amos firing directly at Mechazavana and not even really killing them that well. Switch targets. I figured that would have had to have killed them by then. I was wrong. And the Prists get on target. Man, this was a scary, scary game at times. Yeah. See, we do it, we go all at once, and that actually looks scary to Red. It didn't before. Yeah. Yeah. This was a really nice answer as well. So, look at that. This worked up until about here, and then it got so cripplingly hard countered, it's amazing. And yeah, I think both me and my opponent were a little bit desperate here, but like, if I were Red during this fight, I would have never stopped buying M84As. Not even the AN, just the A. Because this thing, 15 front, 19 AP, 4 HE, 8 RPM, we all know the stats of the M84A by now, 75 km/h, medium optics, this thing really gives the tanks that I can bring to bear with Scandi Mech a hard time. I'd even go so far as to say, like, the BVPs that get sort of hard countered by my IFEs, you've noticed my opponent wasn't even bringing out all that many of them, probably because he knows the matchup. And the M84As, I think, are one of the things Entente Mech has going for it in this matchup. I just don't have anything of a similar weight class, really, that has a stabilizer, so Leopard 185 and 02s will just get dunked on the whole game. And we saw that. I mean, 140 points in tanks, more points and stuff in front of it, just dead. And so quick. And the 810D is doing well. Yeah. I mean, that's all good. Bit too far forward. Yeah, quite a bit too far forward. Oh, this was just... This hurt. God. How many Zawasnichi can hit their launcher at one time? Yeah. So, okay. So next time I leverage the town, because can you imagine what Red would have been able to do if I'd been in this situation 10 minutes before? Right, so we switched from pushing up here and through the side and failing that a couple of times. We switched that over to taking this town successfully. And then for 20 minutes, my whole task is attack this from two sides. And I think that could have gone pretty well. Right, so we see the Kubam firing. Block 5 fails to drop again. That was the second time. It just... yeah, I don't know. Triple M84A. Nothing really to deal with it. Oh, this was really goofy. Yeah, a little bit of a feeding contest here between me and my opponent. How many M41A1s can you run into at once? And I guess the thing is too, like, with more time, doing this push into Atlanta is actually pretty possible. Like, 2 Storm receiving 9030N just fast moving right down the highway, and that will be such a pain for Red to deal with, because those autocannons get into the woods here, then helicopters that are trying to look for them get shot down, right? And that's how you turn an inch of an advantage into a mile of an advantage later on in the match. Yeah. Okay, so 155 points to 176, and this is why I'm attacking so much too. Like, if Red can hold on to just this corner for the next 7 minutes, Red wins. And this actually... I'm not sure I would have done this. So let's watch this. There's 1, 2, 3 M84As here. There's no recon really in front of them. And if we look from my perspective, I can see these. And I guess the goal was to kill a strip EV90. They have medium optics, but this seems like such a risk to go in and do. Panic 2. Stun, Gewehrman. Okay. Because if these die and they don't get kills for it, then that's really, really bad. But as it is, medium optics, dead CV. I cannot tell you how frustrating that was during the match. Like, I don't know. So this area had been shelled, right? And my CV had moved a little bit. The reason it was up so far is because people usually shell back here, but when this section was shelled, I should have realized it was seen, so I should have moved it somewhere else, anywhere else, and that would have made this, instead of, you know, somewhat worthwhile, it would have made it a 300 point nearly feed, because Volkskrieger 90 that were just too late should be able to get, yep, that's 1, another stun, should be able to get all 3. And so, like, when you look at that, it's such a horrible trade in terms of destruction, but with 6 minutes left in the game, this is clearing 30 points. That's plus 2 minutes. Sorry, that's 2 minutes at +1 that Red has as an advantage now, and only 6 minutes to correct it, which means that I not only need to countercap here, but I need to have 2 full minutes of decapped on the top part of the plateau there in order to just match the points, and every single second that goal is getting farther and farther away, not to mention the other attacks other places. So that was really, really, really rough. That was a really big mistake. Probably the biggest mistake of the entire match. Because the first one, at least, when these guys were through here, I thought they were stunned. People would see that and think that they were stunned. But yeah, that was just so painful. And you can see the desperation now in what I'm doing. So Volkskrieger 90 coming up here looking for the kill. Not able to get it. No line of sight all the way to target. Yeah. And at least this does neutralize it, but like, that doesn't really solve the problem, because if we look, there's another strip EV90 coming out. It's going to take me another 40-ish seconds to get into Fetter. So now I have to hold this cap for a while. And yeah, so I'm sure I've said it a couple times by now, but I'll say it again. Like, if I could have made this board position happen 10 minutes earlier, even 5 minutes earlier, by attacking Gregory first and then rotating, I don't think this game would be close in terms of score. But it is, because I took a ton of losses pushing against a hardened expected position instead of going after something that was definitely a bit weaker. BVPs, Proletary, lots of Proletary. I'm not sure I love the Proletary PvP card, but I've seen a lot worse. Like, I don't take Proletary 90 in PvP, I think it's too expensive for the PvP. You want these guys cheap, but at least with the Proletary, like, it's only 5 points more, and you get additional vet on the PvPs. So I do see the arguments for it. That's alive. Failing to get that kill is a big problem as well. And then the only thing between these Proletary, this was actually really goofy, let's take a look. Proletary, nothing, and my CV infantry here. The only thing between them and my CV infantry was a Scania and a Fennec 20 mil. And this was pushing forward to make sure that I could see the forward leading Proletary. And the second they come into the open, just, I mean, I used to doubt the Fennec 20 millimeters, but they're good. They're just good. And this was confusing as well. I guess my Fennec was close enough that the Scania didn't get captured, but it definitely should have. And if that had gotten captured, then I can't shoot at the Proletary because they wouldn't have been spotted anymore. It's just a little bit weird. I didn't know that helicopters could keep resupplied trucks from being captured, but, you know, live and learn, I guess. Yeah, this is brutal. Finding 20 millimeter, doing what it's supposed to do. Okay. Oh man. Can you imagine? Red right now has no recon on this section. Can you imagine if even a single unit was here in these woods? Not even just to get the kill, but to just to spot it, just to let me know what was happening, because we have 2 minutes at +1, 177 to 190 with 2 minutes here. I just barely eke out a win. Right, 2 minutes at +1, that's a win. But if this guy caps, even for a little bit of time, that won't be, and there's nothing else that can reasonably stop this. The M84AN up top is sort of on its own. Everything else, once you get down to the last minute and a half or two, the only things that can reach the front are going to be helicopters and planes, and to some extent motorized assets, and neither one of us have that because we're mechanized, and there's just nothing here to spot it. Goodness gracious sakes alive. Look at that, there's the cap. On the line too, cheeky. Barely in the zone. The unit model isn't even entirely in the zone. Always remember that these boxes are drawn on top of it, and the zone itself is defined on the base layer. So there are certain exceptions to where the zone is showing. And I was sitting there going, where the heck is this? Because I had stuff up on the top, nothing else drove up there. Like, there's only one place it could possibly be, and everything of mine is just fast move right to it. I'm going to lose the Stormer, I don't care. Losing the Block 5 earlier without dropping is coming back to bite me, and like the fact that I couldn't even kill this thing is coming back to bite me, because, I mean, look at this. 186 to 190, 50 seconds left, no longer enough time to get the win. Because you gotta clear beyond, what is it, 10% of the loser's points? So there's literally no way with the time remaining that a +1 gets me the win anymore. All because one command tank drove up completely unsupported. How many times are you gonna see that, man? Like, goodness gracious, I love this game sometimes. Even in moments like this where I really want to hate this game, it's just like, okay, yeah, okay, well played. Well played. Of course, the best part's actually coming right up here. You might notice 188, 9 seconds left, 189, 190, and in the last second I get a tick, 191 to 190, and the trading was exactly equal, 3840, 3840. I do not remember the last time that I saw something this close, like dead even on kills losses, dead even on conquest points. And you know, Quicksilver, I think you're still in the chat here, can't quite see, but like, very rarely do I have matches that are that dead nuts close, and I think both of us had moments where if we hadn't have made a couple of small mistakes, that would have gone definitely the other direction. Your M84ANs dying to a single automatic, my CV getting killed by your infantry, and then killed again by the M84A. It's just like moments like that. And this
You'll
game...
see me on Gregory not dying to 100 arty shells from my true priest.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, just a knife's edge. And, yeah, I mean, I think... So, I think that'll about do it for tonight's live stream, but I hope you'll see now, like, when I look through my own replays as well, it's really hard sometimes to see the positives even from a win, and that can be its own problem as well. Like, I don't want you guys to think that I just look at this game from a strictly disapproving angle. I don't. I love it. I have so much fun. There were so many good plays there too. But the problem is, if you look through your replays and all you see are the good plays, you're never going to improve. If you look through your replays and all you see are the bad plays, you're never going to improve. So I'll sometimes go through the same replay 2-3 times if I'm really interested in it, because the first time I just see the bad, even for a win. And then the second time I see mostly the bad and then some of the good. And then the third time, if I'm really trying to learn from that loss, if I'm really trying to learn even from that contested close win, that's when I think you really see the good, the bad, and the ugly all sort of coming together and figuring out what it is that you should have done differently. So, as much as we talked about here, as many times as we paused here, if I really, really, really wanted to tear this game apart, that would be the first of at least 2 and potentially even 3 looks at it, just thinking, what do I really want to do differently? What should I have done differently now, but also 5 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago, 15 minutes ago, and all of that. And that, I think, is really truly how you take what you've done and you do something better with it the next time around. So thank you guys for hanging out. I'm sorry I didn't announce this one. I'm doing a couple more impromptu live streams before my next job starts up here as early as tomorrow and as late as a couple of weeks from now. We'll see. So I'm waiting on the go-ahead. All the papers are already signed, and with that, I guess we will have another tournament game with NDMO probably posted, well, today's Monday, so probably posted tomorrow, Tuesday. And I'm hoping to have another couple of shorts here as well real soon. So if you guys do like these live streams, I can do more of them. And, well, we'll see you around real soon.